Hi guys, I'm going to do the questions from the 4C summary to help you guys practice. I wanted to review the transformations of a parabola when we looked at them in vertex form. This is the first form that we looked at together as a group. So we'll do a quick review here and then we'll answer some questions. So you can see on Desmos that I have our parabola in vertex form with the different parameters of a, h, and k. We'll look at this original parabola of x squared and see how it transforms. I'm going to add the another original graph just so that we can see it, and then I'll make it dotted, just so that we can see what the original is supposed to look like in comparison to that. So the first one that we looked at were the values of h and k. K is probably the easiest for most. We would see that this value would allow the graph to go up or down depending if it's positive or negative. So right now the graph is just oscillating between the values of up to positive 10, it moves up, and then it's going to move down all the way up to negative 10 if it's going to do that. So you can stop this at any time. So I'll move it back to 0. And then you can remember here for the parameter of h, it's inside of the bracket. The expectation is that if h is actually positive, it's going to move to the right. And if the value is negative, it's going to move to the left. So it's going to do that for values up until positive and negative 10. So you can see that it's oscillating, sorry, not oscillating, just translating left and right, however many units that we want it. So we'll pause that. And then the value of a has to be a value that's not equal to 0, just because if we multiply it over here, the actually gets multiplied together, and then the only thing that we'll be left with is the value of k. So you can see here, I'm actually going to do this with you guys. If a is greater than 1, we would see that the value 2, 3, 4, just because it's getting multiplied, it's now allowing my graph to go at a faster rate than it usually was. So if the value of a is greater than 1, we know it's going to be a vertical stretch, and it's going to make the graph appear more narrow. And then if I make the value between 0 and 1, so this was 0.7, 0.8, 0.4, 0.3, you can see now that our graph, oh, it's twitching. Our graph is now appearing to be a little bit more wider than our original parabola. So, and we have one more transformation for a, that if it's negative, we know that it's supposed to be reflected over the x-axis. So again, if it's between 0 and 1 and it's still negative, I can see that I have a wider graph than my original parabola. And then if I have one that's greater than 1 but also negative, it's now going to appear narrow, but it's also reflected. Okay, so if I look at this graph up here of y is equal to half, and then I have x minus 1 squared minus 3, I can identify all of these parameters and what am I expecting to happen to the graph. So this one's the easiest. If I look at the value of k, our k value is supposed to be equal to negative 3. So my expectation is the graph is going to move down. So if I put that value in here, I can see that my parabola, I'll reset all of these so we can see. I'll make our parabola move down 3 units. And you can see here from the original graph, it does that. And then when I look at this value of h, remember that when we take it out of the bracket, if it reads as negative, it's actually going to become a positive 1. So the expectation of this graph is so that it's going to move 1 unit to the right. So let's change it here that it's going to move 1 unit to the right. I'm a little over. There it is. And then our last value or parameter is a, and this is equal to half. Because it's positive, I'm expecting it to stay opening up. And then I'm going to now either stretch this or compress this. And because it's a value between 0 and 1, I know the graph is now going to be visually wider just because it's traveling now at a slower rate. So let's change the a. Right now I have a positive 1.2. If we make this to a positive half, I can see that this is now my wider graph. So this is what the original parabola looks like, and this is the transformed parabola with those parameters.